Bill Masterton. The Minnesota North Stars were locked in a tight contest against the Oakland Seals on January 13, 1968 at the Metropolitan Sports Center in Bloomington. The air inside the arena was thick with tension. Bill Masterton, a 29-year-old center who had fought his way into the NHL after years in the minor leagues, was determined to make his mark. Masterton carried the puck into the offensive zone. As he approached the Seals' defense, he attempted to thread a pass through traffic, but the play broke down. Two Oakland defenders converged on him simultaneously. Masterton lost his balance and fell backward with terrifying speed. His head struck the ice with a sickening thud that echoed through the lower bowl. The sound was unmistakable, a crack that cut through the arena noise like a gunshot, followed by the dull, wet impact of skull meeting unforgiving ice. Players from both teams stopped mid-stride, their instincts immediately recognizing that something catastrophic had just occurred. Masterton's body went completely limp before he even finished falling. His arms splayed out at unnatural angles as he crumbled to the frozen surface. Within seconds, a dark crimson stain began spreading across the white ice beneath his motionless head, growing larger with each passing moment, as fans in the lower bowl stood frozen in disbelief, some covering their mouths, others gripping the railings with white knuckles. The arena fell into an eerie silence. Blood began to pool beneath his head. Masterton never regained consciousness. He was transported to Fairview Southdale Hospital, where doctors worked desperately to save his life, but the massive brain trauma was insurmountable. 30 hours later, on January 15, 1968, Bill Masterton died, becoming the only player in NHL history to die as a direct result of injuries sustained during a game. The NHL began serious conversations about mandatory helmet use, though it would take more than a decade before helmets became required equipment in 1979. Before we continue with these heartbreaking stories, if you believe player safety should always come first in hockey and that we must never forget those who paid the ultimate price, show your support by subscribing to this channel and helping us honor their memories. Derek Boogaard. Derek Boogaard was the kind of player whose reputation preceded him onto every sheet of ice he touched. Standing 6 feet 7 inches tall and weighing 265 pounds, he was an enforcer whose job was to protect his teammates through intimidation and physical dominance. Fans in Minnesota and New York knew him as the Boogeyman, but behind the menacing exterior was a young man struggling with demons that the hockey world was only beginning to understand. May 13, 2011. The apartment in Minneapolis was silent. Derek Boogaard sat alone in the dim light of his living room, his massive frame slumped on the couch, his body aching in ways that had become unbearable. The pain was everywhere. His hands, his back, his jaw, his head. The pills were supposed to help. He reached for the bottle of oxycodone, one pill, then another, then another. He washed the pills down with alcohol. His breathing began to slow, each breath becoming shallower, more labored. His heart struggled to keep rhythm against the toxic cocktail flooding his system. The room started to blur, the edges of his vision darkening. His head tilted back against the couch, his chest rising and falling in weaker and weaker intervals. And then Derek Boogaard's chest stopped moving. His heart gave one final beat and fell silent. The man who had been feared across every rink in the NHL, the enforcer who had fought 66 times to protect others, died alone in the dark. When someone finally found him the next morning, he was already gone. The autopsy confirmed accidental overdose, alcohol and oxycodone, but his family knew the full story. This was a man who had been in pain, both physical and psychological, long before that final night. Months after his death, researchers at Boston University examined his brain tissue and discovered something that sent shockwaves through the hockey community. Boogaard's brain showed clear evidence of chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, a degenerative brain disease caused by repeated head trauma. The findings were particularly alarming because Boogaard was only 28 years old. The hockey world had to face something it had ignored for decades. Enforcers like Boogaard were celebrated for their willingness to fight, to absorb punishment, and to sacrifice their bodies for the team. His death made people ask, is this what we want from our enforcers? Is entertainment worth this price? Lokomotiv Yaroslavl plane crash. September 7, 2011 began like any other day for the Lokomotiv Yaroslavl hockey team. The players, coaches, and staff gathered at Tinoshna Airport in Yaroslavl, Russia, preparing to board a Yakolev Yak-42 aircraft that would carry them to Minsk, Belarus, for their first game of the season. The talented roster featured former NHL stars like Pavel Demitra and Josef Vasicek. The plane began its takeoff roll at approximately 4:05 p.m. local time, but something was wrong. The aircraft struggled to gain altitude. Witnesses watched in horror as the plane barely cleared the runway before its tail struck a radio mast. The impact caused the aircraft to nosedive, crashing into the banks of the Tenoshka River and erupting into a massive fireball. Of the 45 people on board, only 2 survived the initial crash, and 1 died 5 days later. The death toll included 37 players and staff members, nearly the entire Lokomotiv Yaroslavl organization. The investigation revealed catastrophic failures. Aviation authorities determined that the pilots had improperly configured the aircraft for takeoff, failing to retract the wheel brakes fully, which prevented the plane from achieving the necessary speed and lift. The findings painted a picture of negligence and systemic failures that culminated in one of the worst aviation disasters in sports history. If these stories are affecting you as deeply as they affect all of us who love this game, take a moment to subscribe and join a community that believes in remembering these lives and advocating for the changes that could prevent future tragedies. Humboldt Broncos bus crash. The afternoon of April 6, 2018 was clear and cold across the vast expanse of the Saskatchewan prairie. The Humboldt Broncos, a junior hockey team made up of teenagers and young men chasing the dream of playing at higher levels, were traveling north on Highway 35 towards Nipawin for a playoff game. The bus was filled with the familiar sounds of a team on the road. These were kids, most between 16 and 20 years old, who had left home to play the game they loved. At approximately 5 p.m., the bus approached the intersection with Highway 335 near the small community of Armley. At the same moment, a semi-trailer truck was traveling westbound, approaching the same intersection. But the truck did not stop. It entered the intersection at full speed, and the Broncos bus struck the side of the trailer with devastating force. The impact was catastrophic. The front of the bus crumpled like paper. Inside, players and staffs were thrown from their seats, their bodies subjected to forces no human is designed to withstand. 16 people died at the scene or shortly after in hospitals. 13 others survived with injuries that would alter the course of their lives forever. The truck driver had failed to stop at the intersection, a failure that cost 16 lives. Canada was transformed by the Humboldt tragedy, with vigils held across the country and millions raised to support families and survivors. Bob Probert. Bob Probert was a legend in the world of hockey enforcers. Over a 16-year career with the Detroit Red Wings and Chicago Blackhawks, Probert accumulated nearly 3,500 penalty minutes, a staggering number that reflected his role as one of the game's most prolific fighters. Fans loved him for his toughness, his loyalty to his teammates, and his ability to change the momentum of a game with a single fight. But Probert's life was also marked by struggles with addiction, legal troubles, and the toll that his role as an enforcer took on his body and mind. On July 5, 2010, Probert was spending a summer day boating on Lake St. Clair with his family. Suddenly, he collapsed on the boat, clutching his chest in pain. His family immediately called for help, and Probert was rushed to Windsor Regional Hospital, but efforts to revive him were unsuccessful. He was pronounced dead at the age of 45 from a heart attack. Following Probert's death, his family donated his brain to researchers at Boston University. The results were both expected and heartbreaking. Probert's brain showed clear evidence of CTE, with significant degeneration consistent with years of repeated head trauma. Probert had fought 246 times in his NHL career, each bout accumulating into irreversible harm. Bob Probert's legacy is complex. He is remembered as one of the toughest players to ever lace up skates, but also as a cautionary tale about the hidden costs of the enforcer role. These stories are about human beings who love the game, who gave everything they had to it, and who paid prices that no one should have to pay. If you believe their memories deserve to be honored, subscribe to this channel, because what happened to them could have been prevented, and the tragedies we haven't covered yet are far more disturbing than you can imagine.